Well, hello, my name is Jeff Stauffer, Community Relations Director with Elville and Associates, and welcome to our webinar today titled The National Multiple Sclerosis Society, a movement by and for people living with MS, presented by Ms. Chartice Berry, Greater DC and Maryland Chapter President, Ms. Emily Smith, Licensed Clinical Social Worker and Manager of Case Management at the NMSS, and Ms. Emily Riley, NMSS Healthcare Provider Engagement Manager, Certified Personal Trainer, and a person living with MS. So how this will work today, if you're new to our webinars, if so, welcome, we're glad you're here. You as the attendee are in listen-only mode. However, if you have questions, and we really want to encourage you to ask questions throughout, don't be shy. Please note them in the panel on the right-hand portion of your screen, and we'll pause roughly halfway through and periodically throughout the presentation, and we'll also leave time at the end to address them. You also received the presentation by email yesterday from me to take notes on the presentation if you wish. If for some reason you did not receive the presentation yesterday from me, it is currently located in the handouts section of your panel on the screen for download at this time. Everyone will also receive a post-webinar feedback survey right after the presentation, and we ask that you please just take a couple minutes to fill out this simple survey to offer us your valuable feedback about the presentation. Elville and Associates works every day with families, with clients, and their clients with ideals of client education, collaboration, and compassion in mind. And you should expect nothing less from us anytime you work with us, or any company you work with for that matter. We're always available for free consultations to discuss your family's needs, and look forward to being a resource to you at any time. So at this time, I'd like to provide a brief intro to each of our presenters. I'm going to start with Ms. Chartice Berry. So Chartice is in her 6th year as president of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, Greater DC, Maryland chapter. The society exists to make sure that people living with this unpredictable and often disabling disease that affects more than 2.3 million people worldwide live their best lives. Prior to her tenure at the National MS Society, she served 3 years as Senior National Director of National Partnerships at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, whose mission is to cure leukemia, lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, and myeloma, and to improve the quality of life of patients and their families. Ms. Emily Smith is a licensed clinical social worker and a manager of case management at the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. In her current capacity, she works to increase independent living capabilities and quality of life for people affected by MS, whose health and safety are compromised by limited knowledge, understanding, and/or ability to access programs and benefits. In her previous roles at NMSS, Emily provided individual, group, and programmatic support to individuals and families affected by multiple sclerosis, in addition to education and training to professionals. Lastly, but not least, Ms. Emily Riley has worked for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society as a healthcare provider engagement manager since 2019. She graduated with a degree in marketing but switched career paths after becoming a military wife in 2011. Emily is a certified group fitness instructor and certified personal trainer with over 6 years of experience creating and teaching adaptive fitness classes for those living with MS. The MS community is near and dear to Emily since she herself was diagnosed with MS at the age of 17. She refuses to let this diagnosis stop her from pursuing after her goals and dreams, and strives to help empower others living with MS to do the same. Her motto is, quote, "No matter what your limitation, you can keep moving." So with that being said, we appreciate you all being here, and I will turn it over to Miss Emily Riley. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for everyone who is on the call, who is watching this. We really appreciate you taking some time to learn more about the National MS Society. Maybe you have a connection, or maybe you want to learn more about what multiple sclerosis is and who the National MS Society is. So we hope that after today, you'll know a little bit more. This is our agenda. This is a quick little overview of what we're going to be covering today. So anyways, sorry, I gotta get my PowerPoint on. So here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. I'll share a brief overview of what MS is, what it looks like to live with MS. You're also going to get to hear about the National MS Society, who we are, what our focus areas are, and the resources and support that we have for those who are impacted by MS. Also, you get an opportunity to learn how you can get involved. All right, so first, what is MS? So, multiple sclerosis is an unpredictable, often disabling disease of the central nervous system. And so what happens is that the central nervous system gets disrupted, the flow of information from the brain to the body. Now, the expert consensus is that MS is an immune-mediated disease. That is a disease of the immune system. And it perhaps is autoimmune. So in an autoimmune disease, the immune system mistakenly attacks healthy cells and organs or tissues in the person's own body. So the primary site of the attack in MS is the myelin coating. It's the sheath that wraps around the fibers that are long, thread-like parts of the nerve. The sheath that protects these fibers are known as axons, kind of like the insulation around an electrical wire. So if you kind of think of it as like your phone charger, when your phone charger cord, when those wires get exposed, sometimes your phone doesn't charge as well, or sometimes it doesn't charge at all. And essentially that's kind of what's going on for people living with MS. That myelin coat, that sheath, the body is attacking it, which then creates these lesions or scars, disrupting the flow of nerves to the parts of the body, which causes the symptoms. So essentially that's kind of what MS is. In layman's terms. So what causes MS? Well, the diagram that I'm about to show you kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what causes MS, but we're still doing a lot of research to try to figure out what truly does cause MS. Obviously, it kind of starts with the genetic disposition. So when a person who's genetically susceptible encounters environmental triggers, the autoimmune response is then initiated. It's the autoimmune response that causes the inflammation and the damage to the central nervous system. Now, we've found that there's about 200 risk genes that have been identified for the risk of developing MS, but there's still a lot of research to be done. And so often a lot of people wonder, like, if somebody is living with MS and they have a child, like what are the chances of their child getting MS? So we're still trying to figure that out, but in general, it's about 1 in 750 for the general population of getting MS, that risk. That's 0.1%. For someone with a close relative with MS, it's about 3%. If you're identical twins and one has MS, there's a 25% chance that the other one would have MS. So the risk is obviously going to be a little bit higher in family members where there's several family members living with MS, but still it's something that we're still researching and trying to figure out. Now, when it comes to these environmental triggers, research has kind of shown that there's a few things that increase the risk of potentially developing MS. One of those is smoking. So smoking is known to increase the risk of MS and also disease progression. So we're always encouraging people living with MS to stop smoking. Obesity is another environmental trigger, especially in adolescence for girls. And then also Epstein-Barr. So often a lot of people who maybe have had mono or the Epstein-Barr virus often can develop MS later on. And as well as low vitamin D levels and the gut microbiome. So still a lot of research is to be done. And hopefully as research kind of progresses, we'll have a better idea of what risk factors there are. So who gets MS? Well, the National MS Society led a study that confirmed that nearly 1 million individuals have MS in the United States. And that's a really interesting thing because we had done a research study on this, and for the longest time, 400,000 was the number that everyone thought people living with MS. But after the study that we convened, it was over 1 million people. So that's twice as many people living with MS in the United States. And so, which really has helped increase funding and things like that because it's a lot more prevalent than we thought. So MS is usually diagnosed between the ages of 20 and 50. Although, you know, it is occasional diagnosis in young children and in older adults. Sorry. I feel like my bigger screen is not on. There we go. All right. So it can be diagnosed in children and in older adults. It is more common in women than it is in men, about 3 to 1. Also, it occurs in, my bad, sorry. It occurs in all ethnic groups, but for the longest time, they thought it was just a Caucasian disease. But recent research suggests that the risk of developing MS for African Americans, especially in women, is higher. It's not as common with Hispanics or Asians, but it still occurs. And also it's shown that it's more common in temperate areas, so further from the equator, which would also contribute to that low vitamin D level. So it's kind of an interesting fact. So how do people get diagnosed with MS? This is a really tricky thing because there's a lot of different tests that need to be done, a lot of things that need to be ruled out, and there's not just one single test that can determine if a person has MS. The process of diagnosing MS is kind of one of exclusion, and there's a lot of different causes. So MS is a clinical diagnosis, so there has to be some medical history. The current criteria for MS is kind of requires evidence of damage that has occurred in different places in the central nervous system, both on the spine and on the brain. And this is why it sometimes can take months or even years to get a diagnosis, which can really have some implications. And so MS, it is a clinical diagnosis, so that medical history and neurological findings. So if people are experiencing different neurological symptoms, that usually will then encourage doctors for the person to get an MRI. So that typically is done on the brain and the spine to find those lesions or the white spots on the brain and the spine. Also, sometimes people do have to get a spinal cord or a spinal tap to also help rule things out. Some people might get blood tests to rule out other autoimmune diseases. A lot of other autoimmune diseases mimic some of the same symptoms as MS, which can also make it more challenging to get a diagnosis. But these are just some of the different tests that are done to help get somebody diagnosed. So what are the symptoms of MS? Well, so as you learned, MS is a disease of the central nervous systems, which is the disease of the brain and the spinal cord. And so your brain is like your control center of all things, which means that MS impacts so many different parts of the body, causing lots of different symptoms. And so some of these symptoms are invisible, which makes it really tricky because someone may look healthy, but they may be experiencing a lot of symptoms that you may not be able to see. And so this is just kind of a brief overview of what some of the symptoms look like that somebody living with MS can experience. And the other hard part is symptoms can vary from day to day. And so it can really impact people's lives in various ways. So some of the symptoms are cognitive problems. This can be from memory to executive functioning, emotional changes like anxiety and depression. People can experience some dizziness, fatigue, the type of fatigue where you have a really good night's sleep and you wake up and you're still exhausted. Visual problems can be something. One thing that sometimes happens is called optic neuritis, where you can have blurry vision, double vision, or loss of vision. There's bowel and bladder issues, some sensory things like numbness and tingling, pain and spasticity, tightening of muscles. Some people may experience weakness in walking or balance problems. Heat sensitivity is another thing that people experience when it's really warm out, like during the summer. It can really be a challenge when you're outside. Some of those symptoms can really flare up. So like I said, MS can impact us in so many different ways. So the symptoms that we experience vary. Now, when it comes to disease course of MS, there's technically 3 types of MS. So the most common is relapsing remitting, which is in the top left corner. This is the most common form. So about 85% of people with MS are initially diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS. So people with relapsing remitting MS have temporary periods called relapses. So when that curve kind of goes down, or flare-ups or exacerbations. This is when new symptoms appear, followed by complete or partial recovery, which is why the little graph kind of goes back up. So relapsing remitting typically worsens over time, and it sometimes can then transition to secondary progressive MS. So secondary progressive MS is where symptoms worsen more steadily over time with or without the occurrence of relapses and remission. So you're going to slowly start seeing maybe some disability occur, and sometimes even the MRIs may not change, and so that's when secondary progressive MS occurs. Lastly, primary progressive MS. So this is the type of MS that's not very common. It's about 10% of people with MS get initially diagnosed with primary progressive MS. And this is characterized by the slowing or worsening of symptoms and disability progression from the beginning with fewer little or no relapses or remissions. So with primary progressive MS, this may impact people and they may experience higher levels of disability. So, because MS impacts so many areas of life, optimal management of an individual's MS is best achieved by working with a comprehensive team of professionals. And this is kind of where my role with the society, I work with all the different types of healthcare providers. It's really important for somebody living with MS to be surrounded by all of these different types to help them really live well with MS. And so that can include not only seeing their neurologist, which is super important, but the nurses help with education because MS can sometimes impact our physical activity and physical ability. Rehab professionals are super important. Mental health professionals are also critical, especially because MS, living with a chronic disease is really hard, but it also can cause anxiety and depression. And so having those mental health professionals kind of help with that part of the life is super important too. And it's possible that somebody living with MS may not utilize all of these, but to know that these are all available and important to have is super important. So moving on with optimal wellness. So optimal management of MS involves disease modification, symptom management, as well as lifestyle interventions. So there are over 20 disease-modifying therapies that are approved by the FDA now to treat relapsing forms of MS, as well as secondary progressive and primary progressive MS. Those are more recent, which is really, really exciting. So the idea of these disease-modifying therapies, the idea is to slow the progression of the disease, to slow down the disability, and to limit new disease activity, like reducing lesions on the MRIs. And so it's really exciting to have so many different options, from injectables to oral medications to infusions. So there's a lot of different choices for people, which back in the day, there weren't that many. When I was diagnosed back in 2005, there were only 4 injectable options. So I'm really, really happy with all the different options that we have now. In addition to disease-modifying therapies, the other important thing to incorporate is symptom management medications. So as you saw, there's so many different symptoms, and so there are some medications out there that kind of help mitigate some of those symptoms, whether it's for fatigue or for spasticity to kind of help lessen the tightness in the muscles, to medications for mental health challenges, all those different things. Those can really help maximize someone's quality of life. And then lastly, the one that makes me the most happy is just with my background in wellness and being a group fitness instructor is lifestyle modification. So really making sure that their overall health is something that is a focus. Not only like preventative health care, making sure they're getting screenings, things like that, and reducing those modifiable risk factors like stop smoking, getting their vitamin D. Diet and exercise is super important too, making sure they're fueling their body with good food, but also moving their body. One of the things I'm really proud about with the National MS Society is we recently published a paper on exercise recommendations for all levels of ability, from someone with little to no support needed to someone with high levels of support needs, and what are those exercise recommendations. And it really shows that exercise is not only safe for people living with MS, but that they should be doing it. And so we were able to provide some information of what types of exercises are important, effective, and safe for people living with MS. And so we are always encouraging people to get at least 150 minutes of exercise a week, and that is for the general population as well. But it's nice to know that exercise is important for people with MS, and I'm happy I get to do that for them. So this is just a little summary of what I've kind of gone over, that MS is an unpredictable disease of the central nervous system. The cause is still unknown. MS affects each person so differently and daily with all the different symptoms that they experience. Optimal management is achieved by a comprehensive care team. And wellness in MS requires both disease modification and lifestyle interventions. So now that you kind of have an idea of a little bit about what MS is, the symptoms, let's learn what does it look like to live with MS? And that is where I come in. So I'm going to share a little bit about my diagnosis journey, and just to kind of share what a glimpse of life with MS looks like. So we'll kind of take it back a while ago. You can't really tell because I'm seated right now, but I'm over 6 feet tall, and sports were really a big part of my life. And so I'd like to say that my height did not go to waste. My goal growing up was to go play college soccer, and I was determined to go do that, and nothing was going to stop me. But as we all know, life has its twists and turns, and I had just signed a soccer scholarship to Dallas Baptist University in October of 2005. And I was running sprints at practice one day and realized my legs were really, really heavy and really tired. There came to a point where I couldn't stand up anymore, and I was confused on what was going on. I was also taking a lot of naps because I was just exhausted. And so we did a couple of different blood tests to see if I had mono, things like that, but those came back normal. And so, what we ended up doing was, because I had some previous neurological history from a couple of years prior, we decided to go get an MRI. And with that MRI, that came back with showing multiple lesions on my spine. So they officially diagnosed me with multiple sclerosis at the age of 17. And that diagnosis was really tough. You know, I was young and I really didn't know what my future was going to look like when it came to staying active, because staying active was super important for me. But I was really, really thankful to get connected to an incredible MS specialist who told me 2 pieces of information that were really important. He explained what MS was, he helped me on the disease, he encouraged me to get on a disease modifying therapy early. He said the most important thing is what you do today is going to benefit your future. So I got on a disease modifying therapy. And then he also said, don't let MS stop you, go play soccer. And so that's what I did. I went on to go play all 4 years of college soccer, and I became an All-American goalkeeper, which was pretty amazing. But I think what it did, it showed me that MS didn't have to stop me from pursuing the dreams and the goals that I had for myself, and that with a little bit of learning how to listen to my body and modifications, that I could really achieve those goals and continue living an active life despite this disease. And so that's what I've done. So I'd like to say that, 15 years later, MS has not stopped me. It's been 15 years since my diagnosis, and I have still stayed active. Like I said, I became a certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor to really be able to share what I learned and the impact that staying active had on me, and both physically, mentally, and emotionally. I wanted to share that with the community, and so I really wanted to make fitness accessible for others. And so that's what I did. I've been teaching for 6 years, and it's just been such a joy. And I think staying active has just really kind of helped me feel empowered to show MS that it doesn't stop me. It's built a really amazing community. And one of the things I'm super thankful for was that I got connected to the National MS Society early on, which got me involved in so many different ways, and volunteering and participating in some of the events that you'll learn about a little bit later. And so that's a little bit about me. So before I pass it off to Chartice, I would love to see if there are any questions before we move on.
Well, thanks, Emily. Doesn't look like we have any questions as of yet. If we do, I will make sure to forward them over to you. I just want to say I really appreciate you sharing your story. It's such a powerful message, and something that's very inspirational. For me, that's something I'm going to take back and share with my children, who are currently striving for high school soccer, and taking what you have today and just not letting what you have today stop you for your future goals. I think that's everything you just shared is just such a remarkable story, and I appreciate you sharing that very much.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, no questions as of yet. I'll keep you posted though, and we can go ahead and move on to our next section.
Chartice, you want to go on ahead and pop up?
Sure. So good morning, and thanks, Emily and Jeff. Thank you for having us today. Thank you to everyone on the call. Emily, I really appreciate you sharing your story, and thank you for the tremendous sharing of information around what the disease is, what it looks like, how it impacts people living with the disease. And I'm not sure if it's my screen, but I can't see the slide presentation. I'm not sure if it's just my screen.
How about now?
Yeah, I kind of see, I see two slides. I'm not sure what everyone else is seeing. I see two slides, but in the meantime, again, thanks everyone for being here. I don't see anything now. There we go. There we go. Yay. Thanks,
Sorry
Emily.
about that, everybody.
That's okay. Emily had to present and move the slides along. So I know that is not an easy task, but anyway, thanks, Emily. Of course, as Jeff introduced me, I am Chartice Berry. I'm the chapter president of the local market, and we'll talk a little bit about our structure. The chapter here, the Greater Maryland, DC chapter, is we serve people, almost 2,000 people. I'm sorry, 2,000, almost 20,000 people living with multiple sclerosis in the entire state of Maryland, our nation's capital, DC, and Northern Virginia. Of course, you all heard from Emily Riley, and then you'll hear after me, you'll hear from Emily Smith. I am so grateful to have these amazing ladies on the team that we have here. Emily is going to talk a little bit about her work. She is a manager of case management. So you'll hear from Emily in just a little bit. To go back to, I know Jeff mentioned a little bit about why we exist, but the mission of the National MS Society is that we will cure MS while empowering people affected by the disease or by multiple sclerosis to live their very best lives. And our vision, our broad vision, is really a world free of MS. Next slide. So to tell you a little bit about our history, there's a beautiful young woman, Sylvia Lowry, whose brother, Bernard, had been experiencing visual and balance problems, and he was subsequently diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so with that, Sylvia's love for her brother and her passion around trying to help her brother, she wanted to find out what she could do about the disease. So she placed an ad in the New York Times asking anyone who had a cure for this disease to contact her. And so she received 50 replies at that time. And so the 50 replies that she got, these were all from people who were also looking for a cure. That was an opportunity for her to stand up the National MS Society. So she had gathered 20 of the nation's most prominent researchers, scientists, medical experts at that time, and founded what we know today as the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. We were founded in 1946 by this brilliant young woman who had no scientific background, but just someone who had a vision and a passion and a love for her brother Bernard. And we are celebrating this year our 50th anniversary, 75th anniversary. So it is a very, very important year for us, such an amazing milestone. And the National MS Society today is a 50-state network where we are charged with creating a world free of MS, that broad vision that we talked about. We have 31 chapters across the country. Those are geographic designations where we have executive leaders in the market, such as myself, leading a team who's on the ground doing all of the work that needs to get done for the society so that we can move our mission forward. Next slide. To talk a little bit about how we get our work done, I think about our mission as three-pronged. One, where we accelerate research, and we are seeking to find breakthroughs in the research space. We advocate on behalf of people living with MS so that they can live their best lives safely and effectively. And so We've got research, we've got advocacy, and we'll talk about each of these areas. And we also have what I call our programs and services, where we provide resources, information, connections to support people living with this disease, to give them what they need in order to move along in their journeys. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about research. I'm very, very proud of the work we do in this space. We are the world's largest private funder of research for multiple sclerosis. We have funded, since our founding in 1946, over the last 75 years, over $1 billion in research. We've paved the way for all MS treatments that exist today, and Emily talked a little bit about that and how we have really seen this ramp up in terms of really federal FDA-approved therapies coming to market over the many years. We've got over 22 now on the market. And if you think about it, the first disease-modifying therapy did not come to market until 1995. So in this short amount of time, with all the technology and the movement growing and the people that we have who are helping us fund our mission, we have seen tremendous breakthroughs in the space around therapies where we can help people move their lives forward. We have provided early career support for nearly every recognized MS researcher today, and we are a leader of the International Progressive MS Alliance with 17 countries. And this is such an unprecedented collaboration of international researchers, scientists, experts who have come together, all focused on finding ways to treat symptoms and to manage symptoms and to help with disease-modifying therapies coming to market for the progressive form of the disease. Again, it's an international collaboration of over 17 countries. The National MS Society leads that charge, and we are so excited about the opportunity to be able to help people with the more rare form of the disease in primary progressive. However, we also know that people with primary progressive, they keep progressing in their disease journey. So it's very, very important that we continue to work very hard on all of the forms of the disease, but with primary progressive, a little bit more difficult. There's only one therapy on the market now that actually was realized in 2017 for people living with that form of the disease. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we're very proud to be a leader in that space. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about what we do in terms of being the voice for people living with MS. We have a very robust public policy initiative where we work not only on the state level, but on the federal levels to advocate for people living with multiple sclerosis. We drive policy change at all levels. And some of the ways we do that, I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that specific initiatives that we focus on, but some of the ways that we do that on the state level, for example, in the state of Maryland and across the country, we have district activists who are our most passionate activists who will meet with on a regular basis with state legislators. They also help us with the calls to action that we need in order to get legislation passed. And so they are working with us year round in that space on the state level. We have government relations advisory committees, and this is a group of dedicated volunteers who work in the same vein. It's a smaller group of folks who really help us drive policy change and make sure that the needs and the voices of people affected by this disease are heard by decision makers at the state level. We also have across every state in the country, we have what we call State Action Day, where we will, for example, in Maryland, we'll go to Annapolis and we will have very targeted meetings with state legislators, decision makers, and speak to them about what we are looking and hoping to achieve for people living with MS so they can live safely and live their very best lives while they are charting their courses with this disease. And then on the federal level, there's a lot of initiatives that we prioritize in that space. We do have an annual public policy conference that we host in Washington, D.C., hoping that we will be able to meet again in person in 2022, where we bring over 300 of what I just shared with you, our district activist leaders across the country, to come to Capitol Hill and meet with their legislators in their respective states. And we don our orange, which is the color for the National MS Society, and so we are 3 to 350 to 400 strong coming to Capitol Hill on that very special day during our public policy conference. We also have speakers and sessions where we're educating our district activist leaders. We have folks from the media, political members, congressional members that are speaking to our teams, helping them to learn a little bit more about where we stand and where we're going and what we're looking to achieve during that 3-day conference. So some of the visits that we have upcoming in August for the advocacy space, we're going to be looking at the Credit for Caring Act, access to MS medications, which is always a priority for us. And what that really means is we're making sure that people living with multiple sclerosis have access. They can afford the medications. It doesn't help if you have these therapies that we have been so proud to be a part of bringing to market if people can't afford them. And we know that multiple sclerosis is one of the most expensive diseases. And so we want to make sure that people have access to quality and affordable health care. So that has always been a priority for us. And then some additional priorities include research funding, of course, transparency of coverage and cost, caregiving support, access to quality coverage, affordability and access to medications, which I just talked a little bit about, Medicare options, economic security, and long-term services and support. And those are very broad priorities. And so we could spend an hour touching on what these look like and how we advocate on behalf of them and some of the stories that we have to share to demonstrate the need for these initiatives to move forward. But just to share how robust our activities are and our efforts are in the advocacy space. And then another broad space, and you'll hear from Emily Smith in just a little bit, is really around the programs and services and the ways that we make sure that people have what they need, people who are living with multiple sclerosis. So I'll talk a little bit about the healthcare access focus, and then just to share a little bit more from my point of view, or from what I am going to be sharing with you today. Our healthcare access focus areas include healthcare provider outreach, cultivation, and engagement. And you heard from Emily Riley, who actually is our healthcare provider engagement manager for this market, as well as the West Virginia chapter. So for Maryland, DC, Virginia, Emily is working with healthcare providers, making sure that they have what they need, and so that they are informed, that they understand the resources that we have for people living with MS. We also have a network of partners in MS Care, and those are some of the most dedicated healthcare providers that we have designated as our partners in MS Care, because they have been able to provide a comprehensive approach to taking care of people living with multiple sclerosis. We have several of our partners in MS Care in this area, including Johns Hopkins and Georgetown University, University of Maryland, just to name a few. And these are healthcare providers and or institutions or MS clinics that really are able to take care of people living with MS from that comprehensive perspective. Emily Riley shared with you earlier what that looks like, and how people living with MS really need a team of folks working with them to help, not only from the emotional, mental perspective, the physical perspective, the well-being perspective, and certainly from the disease perspective. We also have healthcare provider councils, and those are folks who are working on very specific initiatives as healthcare providers in the MS space. We also have professional education conferences where, again, it's important that we as the National MS Society, we make sure that people are educated who are taking care of our clients or those living with MS with the most recent, up-to-date, current, appropriate information. And so we work with folks in that area as well. And then student outreach. It's important that we develop the professional workforce, those who are taking care of multiple sclerosis, that we encourage people getting into to science or the medical field, that they take a look at neurology, and then more specifically multiple sclerosis, because of course we've got community neurologists who are able to treat people with MS. But they're also treating people with other neurological diseases, from migraines to or neurological conditions, I would say, including epilepsy, migraines. And so, as Emily shared earlier, MS is a very, very specific disease in terms of how it impacts the central nervous system, but also how it impacts people living with the disease in terms of the symptoms and all of the different ways that people are impacted. So having, again, people in the specialty field of multiple sclerosis is very, very important so that we can treat our community with the utmost of care. So I'm actually going to stop here and ask if there are any questions, comments before we move forward and have Emily Smith come up and talk a little bit more about the ways that we were able to provide information and support to the MS community. Any questions?
Thanks, Chartice. We do have one question, and the question is, are there any exploratory treatments or medications in place or in queue that are helping those living with MS and moving us closer to a cure?
Wow, so I wish that we had a couple of our on-staff researchers and scientists on to really talk a little bit more specifically around that, but I would say very broadly, and certainly Emily Riley might know a little bit more since she does work very closely with our healthcare providers, some of the premier researchers and scientists in the space. But I would say very generally, yes, there's always work being done in terms of, and that's why we fund research, because there's always work being done, and there's clinical trials, and there are so many different breakthroughs that we are on the precipice of. I'm certain. I can't speak specifically to the science, that's not my area, but I would just say we can always be optimistic that there are ongoing projects and portfolios that we support. And we're always excited to see what we can bring to market safely and effectively for people living with MS. Our work isn't done until we do cure this disease, meaning that we stop the progression for those who are living with the disease, until we are able to even stop the onset of the disease. And that means finding out how and why people get multiple sclerosis. If we can prevent people from getting multiple sclerosis, that is another pathway to a cure that we call it, again, stopping progression. And then certainly being able to, if we are ever able to reverse the course of this disease. As Emily shared, this disease is a destruction of the myelin sheath that protects the nerves within the central nervous system, which is why people then are diagnosed with this disease. But once that nerve is damaged, we have yet to find out and determine how. We're working very closely on this, which is called myelin repair, but we're working very hard to find out how do we repair the myelin? How do we, if we are ever able to reverse the progression of the disease, people living with this disease, once the disability sets in, whether it's cognitive, whether it's physical, unfortunately we can slow down progression, but we haven't really learned how to reverse the destruction that's already taken place. So with that, Emily, I don't know, not to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you want to come up and talk about anything that you've heard that, any very specific projects that you know of. Again, not speaking from a scientist perspective or a medical perspective, but anything that you can share from a layman's view.
I think you did a great job kind of going over all the different focus areas for research. There's a lot of research efforts, with the remyelinating drugs, the ones that kind of help repair. That's kind of like one of the big focuses, to repair what's been lost. But I feel really hopeful for what is to come. I know that there's a lot of clinical trials happening up at NIH to hopefully reduce some inflammation on specific lesions, things like that. So we're still just waiting and hoping, but that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, and I would share, speaking to the question where we use the word cure, and I actually use the word cure in my response, is that this year, and most recently in the last, I want to say 6 or 7 months, we've actually changed our mission statement. We've revised it to include the word cure, because we are so hopeful now that with all of the research breakthroughs that we have seen in the most recent years, and those that we know we're on the cusp of, and that we see the promising therapies and treatments in the pipeline, that we will be able to talk about cure, and we will be able to see we see a cure a lot more closely, and again, or a lot more vividly as well. And I think, at one point, cure meant that, you know, the disease wouldn't exist. But we also know that people have been diagnosed, you know, people who were most recently diagnosed, you know, they have the disease. So we think about cures in very different ways, which is why we call them pathways to cures, because there are a lot of different ways to get to that cure, and it means something different for everyone. But we're so hopeful, we're so excited about what's to come, what we've already accomplished with the help of the community. And so I appreciate that question, and we're excited to be able to talk about cure now. So with that, I am actually now, unless there are any other questions, and certainly we will have questions at the end as well, I will turn it over to Emily Smith. And Emily, are you speaking to the slide?
I am.
Okay. Smith again is our manager of case management, and I'm going to turn it over to Emily now. Thanks, everyone. See you in a little bit.
Thanks, Chartice. So I'm just going to kind of move us along, kind of more specifically into the work that we do kind of to directly improve the quality of life for those affected by MS by providing information, programs, and resources to try to meet people where they are in their MS journey. So Chartice, you heard from her on healthcare access, research, and advocacy. So this kind of next component is really more of our programs and services and more specifically how to access them. And I do want to highlight, I said our goal is to meet people where they are in their MS journey. And I really do want to highlight that piece. We really strive for those affected by MS, and this includes not just people diagnosed with MS, but we know it affects more than just that person, to see themselves in the work that we do and to be able to connect and access information and support in a way that works for them. No matter where they are in the country. And we have worked really hard. I've been at the society for a while now, and this was not always the case. So I'm really proud to say that no matter where you are in the country, you have access to the same programs, services, and resources. So the slide that you are seeing is kind of highlighting some of the ways that we provide those resources and support. And the handout that you get or that you have, it should have live links, the goals have live links, so you can click on any of these pieces that I'm gonna talk about for more information, or it'll bring you to that page on our website. Speaking of our website, it's a wealth of vetted MS information covering a variety of topics, everything from understanding disease-modifying therapies and options to symptoms, to searching for specific things such as neurologists in your area through our Find Doctors and Resources tool, as well as local programs or events. And so just kind of to piggyback on that research question, there's a whole section on our website that not only shows kind of how far we've come, which Emily kind of touched on earlier, as well as Chartice, but also what is happening now. You could see NIH studies that are currently happening and kind of new things that are happening in the research world. So to whoever asked that question, you can also kind of, if you want specifics, to dig deeper there. For those who are newly diagnosed, we have our Knowledge is Power program. This is a free online educational series for people newly diagnosed and their families. It provides up-to-date facts about many aspects of MS. It's also available in Spanish. We have a number of connection programs, such as self-help groups, virtual or in person, which we're hopefully kind of get back to some point. We have a Facebook connection group. We have a Café con Leche group, which is a Spanish-speaking focus group, as well as MS Friends, which connects interested individuals with volunteers who are living with MS for a one-on-one peer connection. And then we have a number of educational programs. We have a weekly Ask an MS Expert program, which is also, you can find archived ones on our website, as well as tune in kind of live every Friday. We have on-demand videos on our website and YouTube channel, pathways to wellness programs, and then specific programs for specific populations, such as our Black MS Experience Summit, Spanish brochures, Spanish Ask an MS Expert, and veterans resources. And lastly, also have pediatric resources. and guides for parents. While someone can choose to self-navigate our website and resources, our MS Navigator experience is our cornerstone program that connects you to highly skilled and compassionate professionals to help connect further to these information and resources. And then for those with more complex needs, we offer short-term case management services through the Edward M. Dowd Personal Advocate Program. We'll be talking more about these last two pieces over the course of the next few slides. So the services delivered by our MS Navigator program fall along a continuum of support. It's kind of how we look at it. Some are more low touch, while others are more high touch in nature. And they're available and accessible to everyone, again, regardless of where you live, and they are free of charge. So for some, we know visiting the website for information is enough support for them and where they are on their MS journey. Every year, about 4 million people access information resources on our website. And while this is a low-touch form of support, it provides an opportunity for self-service at any given time of the day related to common requests, such as needing to understand a diagnosis or looking for specific providers in a geographic area. And some may need a little extra help in finding a resource on the site, and in those instances, there's the opportunity to chat with an MS Navigator during business hours for further direction. Usually those will kind of be able to wrap up the questions, and in some cases, maybe there's a phone conversation that needs to happen that can be scheduled. Some may opt to reach out to an MS Navigator by phone from the start, either because that's the method that they prefer to connect around, or because their needs are a little more complex than can be managed just through the self-service resources on the website. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in the next slide, but in these cases, the MS Navigator spends the time needed to assess the constituent situation and work with them to try to find solutions in an individualized and personalized way. And approximately 2 to 3% of callers who connect with an MS Navigator need even more kind of one-on-one support due to the complexities of their situation or the presence of multiple needs. And so in those cases, we are able to offer case management services to help them navigate in a kind of a deeper way to get their needs met. So MS Navigators, just to talk a little bit about who they are and kind of how they do their work, they're trained to serve as supportive partners to help navigate the challenges of MS, unique to each individual situation. So you kind of heard throughout people being able to see themselves no matter where they are in their journey. And then this kind of phrase of, you know, an individual's unique situation. We really do try to meet people where they are and provide individualized approach to support them. And as we've just talked about, people can connect with us in a variety of channels, whether that's phone, email, social media, web chat, and we also get referrals through physicians through our healthcare provider program. Regardless of how someone reaches out to us, a navigator will assess the needs and emotional status of each person, as we know the critical importance of the psychosocial impact of the disease and not just the physical. Using this individualized approach, a navigator is connected to disease-specific information, as well as balancing maybe local referral information, or being able to connect that person to the society's programs and services. So it's really kind of, again, after that assessment, it is looking at a wide range of information and resources, whether local, society resources, community resources, whatever that is, to try to connect them to the appropriate resource or information. At the core of this work, they are providing goal-oriented support and connection to services and resources to find this a sustainable solution and meeting kind of these basic requirements such as housing, food, access to healthcare, as well as connecting to community and social service agencies. So and in some of these more kind of specific, we call it service navigation pieces, the MS Navigator will provide phone-based assistance with navigating these resources to access entitlements or other pertinent resources. This might look like sending along a resource and providing follow-up to see how things went. It may be making a call with somebody to be able to connect with a resource and have support on the phone at the time. And then in this service navigation process, the navigator will follow up again to kind of make sure that the solution was found or if more assistance is needed. And we know that sometimes there are not solutions. It doesn't mean we stop there. Specifically kind of to highlight access to medications or barriers to health insurance or kind of more systemic issues that maybe don't have that immediate solution now that a navigator can help someone access. That's where we kind of turn to our public policy colleagues and advocacy colleagues to help identify these gaps and trends and to help inform the work they do around our legislative efforts for kind of these sustainable solutions in the future. And that's what Chartise was highlighting earlier in the presentation. Those come from directly what we hear from those living with MS and what the barriers are to them living their best lives. So the primary issues that we see that people are reaching out for support to the MS Navigator program include resource connections and kind of expert support with health insurance, benefits entitlements and employment challenges. And we have kind of specific navigators who deal with those specific issues and can kind of speak to them and provide very kind of specialized support in that area. People also reach out to obtain connections to professional counseling services or peer-led support groups, or in some cases we know kind of real-time emotional support is provided by our MS navigators. Others are looking for resource connections and financial assistance with home modifications or assisted living and skilled nursing facilities, or assistance with rent or other pieces that might help find sustainable housing solutions. We know affordable and accessible housing is kind of a nationwide problem currently. So people always kind of looking to figure out how best to find those solutions, and we do our best to try to provide the resources and community resources to help them meet those needs. Others are looking for referrals to MS skilled neurologic care providers, including our partners in MS Care. And then there are others in need of home care resource connections or maybe some interim assistance with non-skilled care services or respite care. Those tend to be kind of our top 5 areas of what we hear people calling in about and need help accessing services, information, and support around. For those who are unable to independently work with the MS Navigator via telephone or email, or those who have complex needs that cannot be addressed by an MS Navigator, the Navigator will assess in consultation with the managers of case management for case management support. And really the goal of this program is to keep people connected to their communities and the resources they need to live their best lives and increase independent living capabilities for those affected by MS whose health or safety are compromised by limited knowledge, understanding, and or ability to access programs and services. So simply put, complex needs as well as just the inability to access the resources on their own and navigate those. And so needing a little more personalized and one-on-one support to do that. So the case management program allows the society to provide these intensive one-on-one support services to people who need it most to help access programs such as meal delivery or long-term supports and services or benefits like Social Security, disability, or Medicaid. It's designed to concentrate on finding solutions in the present time to these issues. It's meant to be short-term, about 4 to 6 months, with the goal of connecting them to those services or entitlements that maybe they are applying for, to address the current goals that they have outlined along with their case manager. And we do this by kind of a network of contracted case managers across the country. So these are highly experienced and trained case management professionals, mostly nurses and social workers. And we currently work with, our network is over 200 case managers nationwide. And kind of add more depending on demand. But these, again, these are professionals who not only are, professionals with an experience in case management, they know those local programs and resources, and the program, it has obviously adapted in COVID times, although we're seeing a transition back, but really the difference is the goal to provide in-home or in-person kind of services. And while we have been successful during COVID and providing a lot of telephonic work, because again, these case managers have that local knowledge and experience to assist. So at this point, I'm going to wrap up this piece. Kind of talked about again how we provide on a continuum programs, services, information to those affected by MS. We've talked about our impacts and empowering people to live their best lives, and this is only made possible due to kind of the events and the fundraising that we do throughout the year, combined with those advocacy opportunities that we spoke about earlier. But I'm going to hand it back to Chartice to highlight some ways to make an impact that allow us to continue our work.
I was on mute. Thanks, Emily. Really appreciate you sharing the very important work that you do and that our navigators do. So we are a nonprofit, which means that the only way that we continue to exist and to be able to provide the impact and to be able to support the MS community is if we fundraise. We have to make sure that we can continue to fund the tremendous research breakthroughs that we've talked about and discussed, that we're able to do the advocacy work, and that we're able to make sure that we're connecting people with the information and the resources that they need to live their very best lives. So some of the ways that we do this, of course, we have local events. I will speak to what we do here in the local market, but many of these events are taking place across the country. And in your PowerPoint, the presentation that you will receive, you can look through these, but we host in our market 17 walks in Northern Virginia, DC, with most of them being taking place in Maryland. And Walk MS is typically the entry point for people who are newly diagnosed with the disease to come in and during the spring to gather their friends and family and celebrate and to support them and to celebrate the movement and how they're getting involved with the movement. And these walks are typically 1.5 to 3 miles in local communities, and we are very, very excited about having these again in person. In the spring of 2022, we did have to have virtual platforms where people walked in their communities and walked their way. Unfortunately, this past spring, just a few short months ago, and of course in 2019, Bike MS. We have 2 bike events, one on the Eastern Shore that we were very happy to safely execute in Easton, Maryland. It was a 1-day, typically a 2-day ride for cyclists. We had that event in June. We are looking forward to our second bike ride in Northern Virginia, where we'll start and finish in Purcellville in Loudoun County. That will also be our one-day ride. It's called Nation's Capital. And Chesapeake Challenge, which I mentioned, we did execute it in a one-day format this year. We wanted to be very careful and mindful of health and safety protocols, so it looked a little different. And we only did a one-day versus a two-day, where it'd be an overnight stay. And those events are typically, our bike MS events are typically 35, 55, and 100-mile rides. You can choose how far you want to cycle, but again, we only did a shorter version this year for both of those rides. And then we have our leadership events, and these are our luncheons. We have the On the Move Luncheon, which is also a series that we host across the country. It takes place in the spring. We had a virtual event again this year, 2 years in a row that we had a virtual event. Next year, we will be in person, and typically we host about 300 community leaders, philanthropists, people in the MS community, raising funds, hearing from a speaker who inspires the audience, and we usually have someone in the scientific community who's able to share hope around where we're headed with this disease and treating this disease. That's typically held in Washington, D.C., and more to come for those who are interested. Certainly, you'll know how to get in touch with us, and we'll make sure that Jeff at Elville and Associates has all the information for those who want to attend and support. And then our Ambassadors Ball. It's our black tie fundraiser. I'd say it's our largest fundraiser in terms of the dollars in the one event that it raises. That will be in person this year. We are hosting the Ambassadors Ball on the district here at the DC's Wharf. We are hosting it outside. Again, we were very mindful as we started to plan this event several months ago. We wanted to be very, very mindful of protocols and the pandemic, and so we are hosting it outside. Typically, it would be in a ballroom indoors, but we are hosting almost 400 people at the pier. So those are just some of the local events and ways to get involved. Of course, we do have a very committed slate of individual donors who write checks, who don't participate in our events, but they can certainly write a check knowing that they can fund some of the very important and impactful work that we do. So those are just a few of the ways, and I hope that if you all have any questions and you want to get involved, that you can reach out to any of us, because you'll have our contact information. I'm not sure if there's another slide after this, if I've forgotten anything, but if not, I'll pause here, and maybe all of us, Emily Squared, can join me on screen now, and we can answer any of your questions.
Well, thank you to all of you, Chartice, Emily, for a great discussion and information. And I appreciate the information that you've shared here today, very impactful, and obviously a lot of community engagement that you offer as well. And that goes to a two-part question that I just had emailed to me. And I think you've actually answered the question in part already. The first part of the question is there a specific age that this disease typically comes about? And the second part of the question is, my nephew is currently living with MS. Who should I talk to if I'm interested in volunteering for the MS Society? And so I guess that you probably answered that question as it relates to many of the events that you're currently planning and having coming up here in the near future.
I'll answer the second part, and then I'll turn it over to Emily Riley to talk a little bit about the first question. The second part is in terms of getting involved. Of course, we invite you to support, meaning to fundraise or to solicit donations on behalf of the different fundraising events that we have. However, you can also, we do have an amazing group of volunteers who show up at these events because they want to help. They want to help, set up, tear down, help us with our leadership events in terms of reception and hosting our guests at those, the luncheons and the balls. So we don't always solicit donations from people who want to get involved. You can get involved just by being your presence and lending a hand. So wanted to share that, and certainly you can reach out to any of us if you have some interest in helping. We also, once we get back into the office and the months to come, we have folks who come into the office and they make phone calls or they help with some of the tasks that our staff is that they have. So there are many ways to get involved. Feel free to reach out to myself or Emily if you have any additional questions around that, or if you're interested, and we can point you to the right person. Again, you have met Emily, but I am so blessed and grateful that on our team we have a big staff of folks who specialize in all of our fundraising events. We also have volunteer engagement folks on our team, and Randy and Libby, and they're specifically tasked with making sure that we connect our volunteers with the things that interest them most, and that we make sure that their volunteer experience, whatever it may be, is one that is meaningful to them. And so we do have folks who work specifically in what we call volunteer engagement. So with that, in terms of the age question, I'll turn it over to Emily Riley.
Yeah, so typically people who get diagnosed are between the ages of 20 and 40, but like I mentioned, I mean, I was a pediatric case myself. I was 17. There have been younger individuals getting diagnosed and older individuals. So I'm not sure how old your nephew is, but yeah, typically it's between 20 and 40, but it's such an unpredictable disease. It impacts so many different ages, but we're super thankful that you are on this call and that you're hearing this information. And if your nephew is not connected yet to the National MS Society, I would encourage you to have him reach out to us. I think it's really important to connect with other people living with MS and getting up-to-date, credible resources. He may not need some of those resources and support right now, but it's always good to be proactive. So thanks for being on this call.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So at this time, a quick question for you, Emily. Maybe I missed it. Is your contact or all of your contacts and information in these slides somewhere? Or would you like me to send that information out in my post-webinar email that I typically send out?
I think I just put like the general contact information for the society. So if there's a specific person someone wants to get in touch with, you're welcome to share my information.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So looks like we don't have any further questions at this time. So now would be your time to get your last question in before we wrap up. So as we do that, if you'd like to, Emily, if you'd like to mention the survey at this time, please go ahead and share that.
Yeah, so you can use this QR code, where you can also put in the chat. Any kind of feedback is always really helpful for us, because we want to make sure that we are providing the resources and support and information that people need. And so any feedback is always helpful. There's also a live link on the PDF as well. Don't mind the screen sharing earlier today, but hopefully you got all the information that you needed to get. But if you do need any additional support or contact, this is the National MS Society's information, our website, the phone number, you can chat online, all those different things.
Okay, excellent. And thank you as well for the PDF that has all the live links. We've never had a webinar presentation that has that type of information in it. So very impressive, and you'll have to show me actually how to do that. So I really like it. As some follow-up items, I'll be sending out a video of today's presentation. So if you would like to share this with your friends and family, coworkers, please do. That would be wonderful to continue to spread the word about the work of the society. I'll also, again, send the slides out for your reference. If for some reason you didn't get them or couldn't download it on the panel on your screen. And just a couple of brief items about the Elville webinar series that continues to go strong. Tomorrow, we will be, actually, let me get myself on camera, which I typically do at this time. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about, with Stephen Elville, our managing principal here at Elville and Associates, we're going to be talking about the essentials of estate planning and elder law. And next Wednesday, we have a new topic, pet power, estate planning for your pets. So yes, you can plan for your pets in your estate plan. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people do it though. So if you have a furry friend or an exotic bird or something of that nature that is near and dear to you, and you want to make sure that that animal is taken care of should something happen to you, which I'm sure you do, you can include information in your planning to make sure that that animal is taken care of. So learn how to do that next Wednesday with us. And next Thursday, we have Ms. Ellen Perticone of Senior Care Navigators coming back to us from all the way back in January of 2020. She presented with us from the Alzheimer's Association. We're going to be talking about understanding Alzheimer's and dementia. This is a very popular topic we did way back when, and we're welcoming her back again to talk about this very important topic. So please join us. Check out our events page on elvilleassociates.com/events, and you can register for any of our events that we have coming up. And we have a lot of events coming up in August as well. So doesn't look like we have any further questions. So I'll say thank you very much to Chartice, Emily, and Emily for a wonderful presentation. Emily, thank you for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate all the work that the National MS Society does. So have a wonderful day, everybody. And thank you for your support of the Elville webinar series. Have a great day.
Bye.